Today, before I begin with my speech, I wanted to ask you all a question. How many of you here have a unique talent that you're extremely proud of? Can I please have a show of hands, please? Thank you so much for your response. Just like you guys, I also have a talent that I'm extremely proud of. It is my ability to change words into pictures. So let's say you give me the word courage. I immediately think of a strong, huge grizzly bear. If you give me the word calmness or peace, I think of a small water lily on a pond with dewdrops on it. So this is pretty much how the process works. One day, I was sitting in class writing notes for English. My teacher came inside and gave me this word, imagination. I paused for a moment and then began thinking again. My brain painted this really weird image that I can never forget. It was of 4 caffeinated monkeys jumping across branches in a jungle. Caffeinated monkeys, out of all the other things in the world. Caffeinated monkeys and imagination. How are they in any way related to each other, is what I initially thought. But they're the perfect match. Why? Caffeinated monkeys and imagination. They're both an unstoppable force. Jokes aside, why do they always associate imagination towards solving the world's scientific problems, towards solving the world's economic crises, while forget about our emotional problems? While we don't pay attention to our tiny emotional problems that hold a lot of significance in our life. Which is why today I focused to talk about solving emotional problems with the help of an imaginative solution. Before we dive into the solution, let me give you a gist about the problem. Imagine this. You're a student. You walk into your classroom and you see a kid who's distancing herself from the rest of the class. You try and talk to her, but she replies with a cold, dismissive attitude. I want everybody to be honest now. How many of you would say that she has a bad character? Can you please raise your hands? A majority? Thank you for your response. That is what I thought too as well. But this is where we all go wrong. A person's character is different from a person's attitude. A person's character is their temporary response to a specific situation, their temporary reply towards a specific question, while a person's character is something that is bound to remain constant. We all fail to not understand this, which is where it leads to misunderstandings. Let's take first impressions for example. This is something that happened to me on my first day of school. I entered the classroom, and just like I mentioned in the hypothetical situation, I saw this kid who wasn't talking to many of the people in the class, but I still wanted to go talk to her. I thought to myself, this kid seems unapproachable and unfriendly. I'll just not talk to her. I'll do it later, it's fine. The next day, I met her at the mess hall and I began talking to her. Our conversations lasted for more than an hour. We just kept going on and on and on. That's when I realized we often judge people based on their first impressions. We do that because we believe that a person's first impression is their real character. But a person's first impression is just their fake attitude. It is not their character, it's not their attitude. It's just a fake impression they are putting up in front of you. So never judge a person based on their first impression. See them for who they are. See them for their character. Speaking of schools, another thing that's most common in schools is stereotypes. If a kid is good at sports, if a kid is good at football or hockey, that kid immediately becomes the jock of the school. If the kid is good at science or economics or any other academic subject, that kid immediately becomes the nerd or the geek of the school. How is this any fair? How can we label people based on just one word while there's a huge world of character waiting to be discovered? How would you feel if people called you based on just one nickname? Why can't a student who's interested in biology also play football? Why can't a student who is interested in basketball also study economics? This is where we all go wrong again, people. Speaking of attitudes and behavior, our moods can have a profound impact on our attitudes and behavior. Our moods play an important role in shaping of who we are. Take this for example. This is again a hypothetical situation. You get a bad grade in your exams or a major test, or you have a disagreement with your business partner, or you fight with your best friend. You go back home. What do? You lash out at your family member. It could be your parents, your friend, your sibling, or sometimes it could also be your dog. How many of you here have done this? Be honest and raise your hands. Again, a majority of people. We all do this. But then what happens? Our family comes back to us. Our family tells us what we did wrong. Our family knows us, makes us know where we have to go wrong and where we must be right. This is something that we must understand. How would you feel if your family members called you an angry person or a frustrated person just because you got frustrated at one point? Hurtful, isn't it? This is what we keep doing to the people around us. This is what we keep doing to the society. And it's time that we realize this. You might ask me, why are you talking about all this when the topic is imagination? Let me come there. But before that, let me highlight a personal experience that would help you understand why I'm talking about this topic. Once, in one of my previous schools, I had gotten extremely low test grades. I almost failed in chemistry. How many of you understand me? Chemistry, very hard to pass. So, I almost failed my chemistry test. And I was sitting in class, disappointed in myself. I was extremely frustrated, to be honest. I didn't know what to do. My teachers were quick enough to notice this. But what they assumed was that I was having a mental breakdown. They thought that I wasn't mentally stable. Now, I understand my teachers trying to make me feel comfortable and make me feel at home, but it wasn't right to assume that a person is having a mental breakdown immediately. So, they put me on counseling sessions. Putting me on counseling sessions wasn't the hard part. I had to endure indirect comments from my teachers that weren't just inaccurate, but also extremely hurtful. I sat through those counseling sessions talking about what I did wrong, what I could have done better. And then I realized, what if my teachers understood? What if my counselor understood that I wasn't having a mental breakdown? That I was completely fine. I wanted to shout. I wanted to tell them that I wasn't having a mental breakdown and I'm completely fine. How would I make them realize this? Which is why I came up with the imaginative idea of the character compass. The character compass acts as a fictional tool that helps people monitor a person's attitude, behavior, and character changes over a period of time. It keeps account of a person's attitude towards a specific situation, their reply towards a specific question. And as I stated earlier, a person's attitude over a long period of time becomes their character. How can this be used in real life, you might ask me? Take job interviews, for example. In my perspective, I believe that there are two majorly wrong things in job interviews. First, the management has to select the right candidate. Am I right? The candidate has to be a right one. But they don't know. Because first impressions, as we discussed earlier, they can be fake as well. That's where the character compass jumps in. A person or the management will be helped with a character compass to judge the candidate better by the basis of job description and the character compatibility. If the person has suitable characteristics along with the job description, that person obviously becomes the perfect candidate for the job. Another issue with job interviews is the nervousness and the stress of the interview. Most candidates fail to perform well in their interview because of time constraints and because they are forced to act out their best selves. If the management has their records and if the management has access to their character compass details, The candidates will have the confidence that the management knows about them already. So they'll be able to perform better. This is where the character compass helps in all our lives. This is just one example that I came up with. Another use could be relationship building. As we all saw, in my experience, a small misunderstanding led to a hugely emotionally taxing period. So, with the help of this character compass, that emotional taxing period could have been banished. And with the help of the character compass, these misunderstandings can stop. You become the judges now. You say what is right. How many of you here still think that judging people based on attitudes is a viable option? How many of you think that we must see people for their character? Please raise your hands. Oh, I can see kids also raising their hands. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your response. I'm glad that you all understood what I was trying to say. Let's avoid making snap judgments about a person based on isolated events. Let's see people for who they are. In every person, there's a story. And in every story, there's a huge world of character waiting to be discovered. So why judge them based on their attitude? See them for who they are. See them for their real character. Thank you so much for your attention.